Lions Nation, the scouting department at Ford Field is working overtime right now, and if you've been paying attention to how Brad Holmes operates, you know that championship windows don't stay open forever without smart, strategic moves that keep the roster fresh and loaded with elite talent. Welcome back to Lions News Fan Report, your #1 destination for breaking news, exclusive analysis, and the most comprehensive coverage of our beloved Detroit Lions. I'm bringing you something today that connects directly to the future of this franchise, something that involves a player currently tearing up the college football landscape. And I need you to stay locked in because what I'm about to break down could define how we maintain our offensive dominance for years to come. Let me set the stage for you. We're sitting at the top of the NFC. We've got one of the most explosive offenses in the entire NFL, and we're legitimate Super Bowl contenders right now. But championship organizations don't just focus on today. They're always thinking 3 steps ahead, always identifying the next wave of talent, always preparing for contingencies that might force their hand. And right now, there's a situation developing at the tight end position that demands our attention. That requires strategic thinking, and that could lead to one of the most impactful draft selections we make in the upcoming cycle. Sam Laporta has been nothing short of spectacular since we drafted him. The kid came in and immediately became one of the best tight ends in football, a security blanket for Jared Goff, a matchup nightmare for opposing defenses, and a cornerstone piece of our offensive identity. But here's the reality that every Lions fan needs to understand. Laporta is likely missing most of the season due to injury. And while Brock Wright has stepped up admirably, we're only assured of having Wright under contract through 2026. That's not a lot of runway when you're trying to maintain an elite offense. When you're trying to give your quarterback the weapons he needs to compete at the highest level year after year, this is where Brad Holmes and the scouting department earn their money. They're not panicking. They're not making desperate moves. They're doing what they do best, identifying elite talent before everyone else catches on, finding players who fit our culture and our system perfectly, and positioning ourselves to strike when the opportunity presents itself. And right now, there's a player competing in college football who checks every single box we're looking for. A player whose trajectory is pointing straight toward being a first-round selection. And a player who could seamlessly integrate into what we're building here in Detroit. Saturday's college football slate is absolutely loaded with talent that NFL scouts will be evaluating. Players who could change franchises, prospects who represent the future of this league. But among all the names that will be circulating in draft rooms across the NFL, there's one player that the Lions absolutely must have their eyes locked on. One prospect whose skill set aligns perfectly with what we need. And one talent who could be the answer to maintaining our offensive firepower, even as we navigate roster transitions. Let me paint the picture of what we're looking for in a tight end prospect. We need someone who can stretch the field vertically, who can create mismatches against linebackers and safeties, who has the athleticism to separate in crucial moments. We need someone who isn't just a receiver, but who embraces the physical aspects of the position, who can line up and move defenders in the run game, who understands that being a complete tight end in today's NFL means contributing in multiple phases. We need someone who's young enough to develop, but polished enough to contribute early, someone whose best football is still ahead of him, and someone who fits the culture of toughness and accountability that Dan Campbell has built here. That player is currently suiting up for the Oregon Ducks, and his name is Kenyon Sadiq. Now, before you start Googling stats or pulling up highlight reels, let me walk you through exactly why Sadiq represents such an intriguing prospect for the Lions, why his development this season has NFL scouts salivating, and why he could be the perfect complement or eventual successor to what Laporta has established. Here, Sadiq is in the middle of an absolute breakout campaign with Oregon. Through 9 games this season, he's already set career highs in both receiving yards and touchdowns, and we're not even done with the regular season yet. He has accumulated 407 yards and 6 touchdowns, including a massive 96-yard performance against Minnesota, where he found the end zone and showed the kind of explosive playmaking ability that translates directly to Sundays. Those aren't just empty stats either. Those are numbers that demonstrate consistent production, the ability to make plays when his team needs them, and the kind of upward trajectory that gets you drafted in the first round. But here's what really separates Sadiq from other tight end prospects. Here's what makes him such a perfect fit for what the Lions do offensively. The kid can absolutely maul people in the run game. NFL scouts love tight ends who embrace the physical aspects of blocking, who take pride in opening holes for running backs, who understand that being a complete player means doing the dirty work that doesn't show up on highlight reels. Sadiq checks that box emphatically. When you watch Oregon's offense, you see Sadiq lining up and moving defenders, creating running lanes, and showing the kind of toughness that Dan Campbell values more than almost anything else. Now, let's be real about the concern, because every prospect has areas they need to develop. With Sadiq, the main issue that scouts have identified is some concentration-based drops. He's had a few instances where balls that should have been caught hit the ground, where focus lapses cost his team completions. But here's the thing about those kinds of issues. They're correctable. Concentration drops are mental mistakes, not physical limitations. With proper coaching, with the right development program, with veterans like Goff working with him daily, those issues can be cleaned up. The physical tools are all there. The instincts are all there. The toughness is all there. The rest is just refinement. Let's talk about the timeline and the fit. Sadiq is a junior, which means if he declares for the draft, he'll be entering the NFL at just 21 years old. That's incredibly young for a player with his level of production and polish. He'd be coming into an organization with established veteran leadership, with an offensive system that maximizes tight end production, and with a quarterback who has proven he can elevate the players around him. The learning curve would be manageable, the expectations would be clear, and the opportunity to contribute immediately would be real. Current projections have Sadiq as the top tight end in his draft class if he declares, with some analysts suggesting he could go as high as the late teens in the first round. That's elite company. That's the kind of draft capital you invest when you believe a player can be a difference maker for a decade. For the Lions, the calculation becomes interesting. Do we have a late first-round pick that we could use on Sadiq? Could we package picks to move up if he starts sliding into that range? These are the strategic decisions that Brad Holmes will be evaluating over the coming months. The beauty of targeting someone like Sadiq is the flexibility it provides for our roster construction. Even when Laporta returns to full health, having two elite tight ends gives us offensive versatility that few teams can match. We can run two tight end sets that create impossible matchups for defenses. We can keep both players fresh throughout a long season and playoff run. We can ensure that if injury strikes again, we're not scrambling to find production at a critical position. That's championship-level roster management. That's thinking beyond just filling immediate need. Saturday afternoon, Oregon hosts USC in a massive conference showdown. The game kicks off at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. And you better believe that every NFL scout with tight end needs will have their eyes glued to Sadiq. This is his opportunity to continue proving he belongs in that elite tier of prospects, to show he can perform against quality competition, and to demonstrate the consistency that turns good prospects into great ones. For Lions fans who want a preview of what could be coming to Detroit, this is must-watch television. The broader point here is that the Lions are operating at a different level now as an organization. We're not just trying to compete. We're trying to sustain excellence. We're not just drafting to fill holes. We're drafting to maintain competitive advantages. Brad Holmes has proven he can identify talent that other teams miss, that he can find players who fit our culture perfectly, and that he can build a roster capable of competing for championships. Kenyon Sadiq represents exactly the kind of prospect that keeps this machine running. That ensures we're not just good for 1 year, but dangerous for the next decade. So here's my analysis. The Lions absolutely must have Sadiq high on their draft board. He fits our offensive system perfectly. He addresses a position of future need. He's young enough to develop alongside our core, and he has the physical tools and mental makeup to thrive in Detroit. Whether we end up drafting him depends on where he goes in the draft and what our pick situation looks like. But he should be a priority target for Brad Holmes in the scouting department. Now I want to hear from you, Lions. Have you been watching Kenyon Sadiq play for Oregon? Do you think he's the right fit for what we're building here in Detroit? How important is it for us to address the tight end position in this upcoming draft? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this community is what makes covering this team so incredible. And I genuinely value your perspectives on these crucial roster decisions. If you want to stay on top of every Lions development, every draft prospect we should be watching, every strategic move as we navigate toward a championship, make sure you're subscribed to Lions News Fan Report. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Smash that like button to support the channel. And share this with every Lions fan you know. We're building something special here in Detroit, and we're going to be here every step of the way, bringing you the best analysis and coverage. Let's go, Lions!